Welcome to Platform as a Product. We want to look into first insights, and we call it signals. We come to that in a minute, on the research that we did in the scope of the Working Group platforms in regards to how organizations do platform engineering. We'll learn a bit about the purpose of the research. We'll learn a bit about how we did the research, the challenges we faced with it, and then go into how we come up with some first signals that show what this research can achieve, and look at the future of it, because there might be a future. Why are we talking about it? It's Dave and me here, and we also have Michael, who can't be sadly here today, but we're the research leads of this research. So we drove that topic a bit in the past, and that's why we present the results to you today. So let's dive into the purpose of it.
So the purpose also includes some of the history of it too. So at KubeCon Chicago, the working group released the maturity model, and there was some talk about what do we do next. And that's about when I got involved, and I'm very interested in platform as a product. And the casting about for what to do, it didn't seem appropriate to do a white paper on a topic that was kind of young. There's not a lot of people doing this, so we wanted to do some discovery. And so we decided to do some research through qualitative interviewing and go out and find out what people are doing. So we want to see what is actually happening out there in terms of product thinking with platforms. So we're interested in finding out, what are the needs and pain points of teams doing platform engineering, building in the platform space. And then we wanted to try and make some connections between the different observations we have of talking to hopefully as many different organizations as possible. And then out of that, we want to kind of collect some personas of how these different groups break down into how they're performing their platform engineering with a product mindset. So it was not a maturity assessment. We weren't, even though you'll see how some of the questions are structured, it kind of looks like a little bit like the maturity model, but we were not looking to see how mature they were, and the correlation was not necessarily about success, it was about what they're doing. So let's talk about how we did it. We actually started out with qualitative data in the process of interviewing people. We have an interview script, fixed script, and then we did further on, we turned that interview script into a survey, and we went out and got some quantitative data through survey and got plenty of respondents, maybe not as many as we'd like, which we'll talk about a bit. So our interview script was based out of the assumptions that people are using product thinking, and it was that they're using product thinking but may not be explicitly exercising it. So we don't actually ask, are you doing product management? Do you have product managers? Because we didn't want to discourage teams that don't have these official roles from actually interacting with us, because as you'll see from some of the research analysis, people are doing product thinking and product practices without necessarily, knowing that they're doing it. Just like lots of people will tell you, I've been doing platforms for long before, they called it platform engineering. So the script went into, some basic background, and then, these different areas of, operations, planning, feedback, all the different things that involve decision-making and interacting with the customers of the platform. And through this, we're kind of trying to get into what their thinking is and the how they're performing their work and building and supporting the platforms. And then out of that, the hope is that we'll get some insight into whether or not they're using it. So in doing the interviewing, it's really important. And I remember going to my first of these as a second, so I wasn't talking. You're there to ask questions through a script. It's important to have the script for consistency, because you can't really compare data with inconsistent interview answers. And you're trying to understand. You're not trying to lead them in some sort of direction as to how things should be done or anything like that. And you need to really resist your, technical people have opinions and they'll want to jump in and express them. It's not appropriate when you're running an interview trying to find out what people are doing and how they experience their work. So the scheduling was interesting. We needed to organize a large group of people, all volunteers, and also keep the privacy of the actual interviewees in mind. Most people don't want their company names released, any specifics, so we had to devise a process that allowed people to express interest in being interviewed, get all of that scheduling done, process all of it, and then actually maintain the anonymity of all of the data. So we had this process that ended up being somewhat complex because of that, because of the nature of the requirements and also the group that was involved. We had a fairly broad number of people. So the leads would take care of things that had PII data, like email addresses and things like that. And we would kind of push that out into a group in a private Slack that would take care of the actual interviewing. And we would kind of arrange things so that we were never sharing things like email addresses with more than just a few discrete people at a time. And then it was up to the leads to take the transcripts themselves, which we wanted recordings and transcripts, and we had to anonymize them in order to publicly release them, which you'll be able to get. You'll see a link a little later, which is right here. You can find the survey, which if you want to take, it's available. And it's a lot of the interview script questions broken out into survey format. So we got a lot of the same basic information, but without the ability to probe for any more depth. In doing this process, we came up with a bunch of artifacts of building up the whole guide for interviewers, the actual interview script itself, the process for processing things, and we even have some research prompts that we used during the processing of the information for research. And we used the working group meetings that are scheduled regularly through the CNCF, open, transparent, and then we had a dedicated private channel because of the fact that even though we're careful with sharing email addresses, we also, we would say somebody from so-and-so company, like we were talking names and things like that. So we kept it to a smaller group of people. And here's a link to the research if you're interested in it. It's got 6 interviews and it's been anonymized, and you can run it through an LLM and get some insights from it. So let's talk about challenges. There were a lot of, it's interesting wrangling a group of people like this to do research. It's hard enough inside of a company that wants to engage research, getting a small group of people to agree on what to talk about, what to engage in. And with a broad group of people like this, we had to agree on goals. Everybody would submit questions, and we had many different formats we went through, and isolating that down to something we could work with was a little tough. Then there's the time and motivation. Getting interviewees to sign up, not so easy, and getting interviewers to sign up and be available, also not so easy. So the rate of no response after signups was fairly high, even though these were people explicitly expressing interest in it. And then the tooling was tough because all those artifacts and things that I showed you were things that you would expect to exist, or tools that would exist if you were doing research in a commercial environment. So we had to spend a fair bit of our time building. We had a small sample size. I mentioned there were 6 interviews. There was a long period of time, and we did not really get as much data as we wanted. So that's why we talk about signals, not research insights. It's just not enough of a data set to really truly talk about insights that would matter to people here. Still makes good reading to go through the transcripts, which have been nicely formatted and such too. So for the rest, Dominik's going to tell you about what we did with the data we got.
Yeah, so we had the data. Now we need to work on the data, right? We called it the synthesis, which I think is the official term, right? And we were working with assumptions. Basically, with the small sample size, we had to be very careful to not, bring in too many opinions, and that's why we framed them as assumptions, and then, had to be very careful to not push opinions, but really back them with enough data. How we did that was by, analyzing the data for everything in the background of the assumptions that we had. We also had some assumptions that were occurring naturally from just analyzing the data itself. And then we pulled out any information, any data bits that we had that would support or dismiss this assumption, and then get enough of a data set, enough of quotes, enough of quantitative data that we had something where we could say, all right, we see the signal as supported. For that, we needed to analyze our quantitative data. We used a survey tool with Google Forms that already helped us a lot with summarizing that data and creating visualizations of it. And then we used a whiteboard tool to really drill deep into that data, see where relations are, and work back and forth with the data. You can see the picture of one of those analyses. Quite a lot of post-it notes came out of that. And for the qualitative data, it was only at the point when we started the research, or the synthesis of the research, it was only 6 interviews, but the script was quite big, and the answers were also quite big. So it was still a lot of data to comb through, and to learn some of the, to extract some of the important insights. So we wanted to use AI, because that's all the hype, right? To work on that, and to be time efficient and to have a repeatable process for it. But fine-tuning the result, creating the context for the agent to really know what we want, resulted in a very complex prompt. And with that, the time-saving aspect of it was not really that time-saving, but it was fun, though. So that was something for it.
Something it might have helped if we had a larger sample size.
Yeah.
Working with 6 samples and this prompt was maybe not so beneficial, but if you've got 100 or so, it could help.
Exactly. So this is the actual prompt that we used at the end. So it's 2 pages, a lot of context, and then a lot of instructions for the agent to do it. Basically, what we wanted to do as an approach is to uncover some themes that are across all of the different scripts that we had, and gather some, summarize some insights from them. We definitely wanted to have traceability of the evidence that it uncovered, so that we can, gut check it ourselves and understand how it came to the conclusions that it created. And some of the challenges that we faced with it were that, AI and the LLMs are very confident in whatever they push out. So it was always saying, this is the absolute insight that you want. And we were like, oh, that sounds nice. And then the quotes it used for it was like, that's not what they say. But it was so confident in it. So this was one of the big challenges working with it. And, it definitely was not a robust bottom-up human, brain controlled approach with that, but more of a, where can we find more bits and pieces that help us not go through the whole document, but only, see the important bits of the document. And one of the big issues that I worked long in the prompt to improve was, for example, that it just pulled out quotes from any of the documents to support the statement of one document. So, interview 5 said this, and then it took a quote from interview 1, which, is not really helpful in that process. So scoping the model to the interviews itself was quite a challenge in the beginning, but we managed to get some quotes. All right, but I think you're all here to see something of the signals that we learned and get some insights. And for that, we go into the experimentation phase. But to really be safe and secure, we also need to prepare. and have the right dress. So give me a second, and I'll go into our experimentation mode. Good. Welcome to our research. And let's look at some of the signals that we have. So one of the early assumptions that we had while already doing interviews, and our light is perfect in those classes, I can see you not at all. So platform organizations use prioritization frameworks unconsciously. Like Dave already said, we had the feeling for a lot of the interviews that we did that lots of them said they don't really use product management and patterns and tools and all that. But talking to them further, we realized, oh, but you do, in a way, right? And that was one of the assumptions that early on, I was also really keen to dive more into it. And let's take this one as an example to see, how we worked with the limited data set that we had. So again, the idea was participants, English, such a hard language, say they don't use any prioritization framework, so that was the limiting persona that we wanted to look in, and then we wanted to look in, are there any patterns that is typically associated with product management that they use. In that sense, we had, in the survey, 17 out of 22 that said they don't use prioritization frameworks, and then in the interview, just 1 out of 6 said they did. So those numbers were pretty strong on the side that the majority said, we are not using prioritization frameworks. So how do we define, that they do, in a way? We looked at common elements that, are common across prioritization frameworks, such as having some structured activities to gain insights, using those insights to inform the prioritization of your roadmap, and then have regular meetings revisiting that prioritization with those insights, right? So that was the patterns that we wanted to see within the scripts and the survey stated. So let's get into the use of structured activities to gain insights. Pretty straightforward. 95% out of the survey stated they use explorative activities, and they had to list, right, which one they did. So it was not, do you use explorative activities? But it's like, what's the list? 88% of them even said they do at least 2 different ones. So, more than just one. And most of them said they talk to supported teams, so basically do interviews with their customers. Here's one of the quotes from the interviews that we used, a very interesting one from our interview number 5, where they talk about KPIs for the efficiency of the teams based on how many builds they are running when they release a new feature, which is quite an interesting feedback to get. And really 100% of all the interviews, all of the 6 interviews said they do regular, different structured activities to get feedback. So what about the influence of that feedback or of those insights on the roadmap? Also in the survey, 88% stated that those activities they do are also having an impact on their priorities, and 64% even document some sort of a product artifact, like pain points and stuff like that, that help them visualize those insights more for their roadmap impact. On the interview side, it was a bit more tricky. So not as clear of a picture, because while 100% of them mentioned to have a backlog at least, not all of them called it a roadmap, but at least some structure in which they organize their work. But most of them really were driven by leadership and driven by overall company objectives and not just their individual teams. One very long, sorry for that, but interesting quote is about how CTOs and domain leaders are discussing high-level goals that go to the team, but the team has then a limited autonomy to work with those goals afterwards and decide what they build. based on some feedback they get. So, a bit of a picture or a not so clear picture when it comes to the interviews. But very clear it was with the use of regular planning. So, surveys and was used by 94%, or in the survey, 94% of them said they use regular meetings. The same amount with multiple roles. Interesting enough, only 56% of them have actual product roles in that, which means product manager, product owner, whatever, in that direction. All right, and in the interviews, also the same picture. It's 100% of them, but it's ranging from like very informal, multiple times a week meetings to revisit priorities to like, once a quarter. The vote here, one of my favorite is like a meeting with 700 people once a quarter to define, priorities. And with that, we can say platform organizations use prioritization frameworks unconsciously, somewhat. There's some signals that point into the direction. The tricky part is the influence on the roadmap. And that also leads us to some of the other insights that I just want to rush through. One is that platform organizations struggle to define and operationalize measures of success. Most of them measure activities over impact. For example, a lot of them are looking at adoption. And, only rarely they really talk about user value. Success is often, more an anecdotal thing with this team did that and we're happy with that, than really having metrics behind it. And again, metrics, we've seen that are not really shaping the roadmaps too much, but it's more like leadership driven in that sense. And that also leads to platform teams having a varied control over their work. Depends on the company size. Smaller companies have more autonomy, larger ones less. That's just one of the insights. And then newer platforms tend to be more on a fire brigade mode and just try to solve some issues that exist, so they are more reactive, and older ones more strategic, and so on. And also leadership or the relationship to business is some relevant factor in there. Let's get to the future for the last couple of minutes of this research and where we can head to. And for that, I can finally get my protective gear a bit down. Good. And, what's the research? So we definitely, or the future of the research, we definitely have some signals on product thinking and the product thinking patterns and tools used in platform engineering. But are those patterns actually successful? Let's, think back to 700 people sitting in a meeting defining what the next 3 months should be done. We don't know if that is successful. Wink, wink. But what actually is successful, right? We need more data. We need to find out what, for us, is successful. Is it a maturity, whatever we say there, right? What's good enough for organizations? We need more data to back that, and we need a better research organization. As we already said, with the challenges of the research, that was quite tricky. We need to just be a bit more professional in the way on how we push that research. We think there is enough in there already. There is some interesting signals. There is more hidden in the data, and especially there can be more in that data, and we definitely think that's worth it. But we need to find the right place within the CNCF and within the new CNCF structure that was presented earlier. Is it an initiative? We have to find out how we want to push that, and we need sponsors and drivers that push this topic more actively and more professionally, or else we will face the same issues again. And one thing that we definitely learned is that we need actionable outcomes in the beginning. People need to learn, or people need to know what they can use the data for, what they can use the outcomes for, to really be motivated to stick to it. Interviewers and interviewees and everybody else working on it. So there needs to be a clear direction in what is this research actually aiming to learn or to know at the end of it. And with that, we come to the end of this talk. So thank you all
Thank you
for your time.